I was standing in the hallway of the cafe during our office party, holding a half-finished glass of wine, watching the guy I'd lived with for 3 years. Caleb was kissing a girl, a young woman in a red dress I'd never seen before. They didn't notice me, completely absorbed in each other, and I could have turned around, walked away, pretended nothing had happened. But I stood there, watching my life fall apart. By the time they finally pulled away from each other, I was ready. I walked up calmly, the same way I handle work issues. "Caleb," I said quietly, "introduce me to your friend." His face turned pale instantly. The girl in the red dress looked at me, startled, then looked at him. "Emily, it's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "It's exactly what I think. And worse. You're not just cheating on me in a dark hallway. You're doing it on my dime. In a suit I bought you, after I've paid the rent on our apartment for 3 years because you kept having work problems." The girl in the red dress said, "I should probably go," and disappeared. Caleb tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Emily, let's talk at home. People are watching. Let them. Maybe they'll learn what it looks like when a woman supports her man and gets betrayal in return." I turned and walked out of the cafe. It was 11:15 p.m. I remembered the time because that was the moment I realized I had nothing in Chicago but a job and an apartment I paid for alone, even though I wasn't living alone. We got home in separate cabs. He sat across from me and started saying all the usual repentant things, but I wasn't listening. I was remembering my dad's words, "Choose a man with your eyes, love him later with your heart." He passed away 6 years ago and left me a house in Maplewood, the one he built before I was even born. 6 months after the funeral, my mom married a man named Henry. She sold our 3-bedroom apartment downtown, the one she and Dad had bought, because she never liked dealing with gardens and chores. She and Henry moved into the old house with his 2 kids and lived comfortably for the next 5 years on the money from the apartment sale. "Emily, are you even listening?" Caleb interrupted my thoughts. "I hear you," I said. "You're saying it meant nothing, that it won't happen again, and that you love me." "Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm moving out tomorrow. The rent's paid through the end of the month. Live how you want after that. We're done." Caleb's eyes widened. "You're not serious." "I'm very serious. And by the way, you still haven't apologized. You explained, you justified, you promised, but you didn't say you're sorry." He opened his mouth, but I was already on my feet, heading to the bedroom to pack. My department head, Stephen, wasn't thrilled about my transfer request. I was his best analyst, and he knew it. "Emily, can't you handle your personal problems without disrupting work?" he asked as he flipped through my paperwork. "I can," I said. "That's what the transfer is for. I have a house there, a family home. It's time to go back." He looked at me closely. In all my years there, I'd never asked for anything personal. I took every overtime shift, cleaned up other people's messes, delivered results even when other teams failed. "All right, I won't try to stop you, but if you ever want to come back, just call. There'll always be a place for you here." By evening, all the documents were ready. The hardest part was still ahead. I called my mom after packing the last box. "Mom, I'm moving back to Maplewood. Got a transfer. I'll be living in the house." Long pause. Then she said, "Emily, you could have warned us earlier. We weren't expecting this. I mean, Charlotte's been living in your room for a while now. Her things are in there, her books. Then she'll have to move out. The house is mine. Let's not forget that. But we've settled in. We're used to things as they are. Maybe you should think about renting a place. It might be more convenient for you." "Mom, I'm not asking. I'm letting you know I'm arriving Sunday." When I hung up, it hit me. After 6 years, I'd become a stranger to my own mother. Someone who might mess up her well-arranged life. But the house was mine. My father built it, my father left it to me, and I had every right to live there. On Sunday, I arrived in Maplewood. The house looked just like I remembered: tall, brick, big windows, and a porch my dad had built himself. I tried using the key I had, but it didn't work. There was no doorbell, so I knocked. Henry opened the door, a sturdy man pushing 50 with a stern face. He called into the house. "Emily's here." Then added, "Your mom's in the kitchen. Go on in." I walked through the living room, where photos of strangers hung on the walls. Henry and his kids at a lake house. Mom and Charlotte at graduation. Brandon holding a sports award. Not a single photo of Dad. Not one of the 3 of us together. In the kitchen, Mom was slicing vegetables. When she saw me, she wiped her hands on her apron and came over for a hug. But the hug felt awkward, forced. "So, you really decided to do it?" she asked. "Yeah, I start work tomorrow." And where are you planning to live? Here, in my house. Emily, the kids are used to having their own rooms. Mom, I said calmly, I warned you. This is my house. I'm going to live in my room. At that moment, Charlotte walked into the kitchen. 19, a college student, long blonde hair, dressed in loungewear. She looked me up and down. So this is Emily, the one who wants to kick me out of my room? She asked Mom. Charlotte, don't talk like that, Mom said. How else am I supposed to talk? I've been living there for 4 years. We renovated, bought new furniture, and now I'm supposed to move to the living room and sleep on the couch. I looked at her closely. She was confident, the kind of confidence that comes from never having your rights questioned. Charlotte, I said gently, I know this is sudden, but the house belongs to me. I'm just coming home. That's only fair. What would have been fair is giving us a proper heads up, not showing up like a thunderstorm out of nowhere. I gave a week's notice. A week? Charlotte scoffed. Emily, do you even know what it takes to move out of a room? It's not just grabbing a bag and leaving. You have to find space for everything. You have to adjust to a new environment. I know. I had to adjust 6 years ago when I lost my dad and my home at the same time. Now I'm at least reclaiming the home. Charlotte fell silent. Mom busied herself putting the kettle on. All right, I said. Let's go upstairs and check out the room. I'm sure we can find a compromise. We went up the stairs and stopped at the door to what used to be my room. A sign hung on it, Charlotte's Beauty Studio. I turned the handle and stepped in. The room was unrecognizable: new wallpaper, new furniture, a different smell. Jars of creams and nail polishes were spread across the desk. The bed was covered with a pink bedspread. I went back down to the kitchen. Mom was setting the table. Charlotte sat there, sullenly inspecting her nails. Charlotte, I said, I know this isn't easy, but you'll need to move your things by tonight. I'm taking my room back. I could see the anger bubbling inside her, but I wasn't backing down, and eventually, she did. The next morning, Mom met me in the kitchen with a strange look on her face. I came down around 6:30, like I always do, and she was already there, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. Emily, why'd you have to be so harsh with Charlotte? She asked without even saying good morning. The poor girl cried all night. She's uncomfortable sleeping in the living room now, on the couch. I poured myself some tea and sat across from her. Mom, I wasn't being harsh. I just came back to live in my room. In my house. But you could have eased into it. Maybe visited for a weekend first, had a calm talk. I did talk calmly. And what would have changed if I came a week earlier? Would Charlotte have happily given up the room? Mom didn't answer right away. Then she said, she got used to it. We all did. And now we feel like we're being pushed out. No one's pushing anyone out. But I'm not going to ask for permission to live in the house my father left me. You had an apartment. Why didn't you stay there? Why sell your own place? At that moment, Henry walked into the kitchen. He gave me a silent nod and started making himself a sandwich. The air turned tense, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for someone to say the wrong thing. Henry, Mom said, turning to him, tell Emily we can find a compromise. He looked up at me. Compromises are made by people willing to give something up. But from what I see, we're the only ones expected to give. Henry, I said calmly, you've lived in my house for 5 years. Rent-free. Wouldn't you call that a compromise on my part? We don't just live here. We take care of the house repairs, cleaning, utilities. Thank you. That's the price of living here. But it doesn't give you the right to control my space. I finished my tea and stood up. I have work. See you tonight. The Maplewood branch of our financial firm was located in an old building downtown. Small office, only 15 employees, but the work was familiar. By the end of the first week, I was already back in the groove and even got some praise from the local manager. One day after work, I ran into Olivia Johnson, my old classmate. We hadn't seen each other in 7 years, but we recognized each other instantly. Emily Harris, she exclaimed. You're really back in town? I am, I said. How've you been? I work at the tax office, married, 2 kids, and totally exhausted from my mom, who thinks she can still run my life. What about you? What brought you back? Long story. Let's catch up sometime, I'll tell you everything. We exchanged numbers, and I realized Olivia might be the only person in this town who could understand what I was going through. She had her own mother issues too, her own fight to live her life on her terms. Back home, things stayed tense. Charlotte gave me the silent treatment. Henry only spoke to me when he had to. Mom tried to keep the peace, but it was awkward at best. I felt like a guest in a house full of strangers who were just being polite enough to let me stay. On Wednesday, Charlotte came into the kitchen. "Emily, my birthday's in 2 days. I'll be 20. I was planning a party here at the house." "Happy early birthday," I said. "But now it's complicated. My friends don't want any adults around. It'll be awkward for them. Mom said maybe you could go stay with a friend or get a hotel room for a couple nights." "Charlotte, are you seriously asking me to leave my own house because your friends might feel awkward?" Mom walked in just then and immediately realized what we were talking about. "Emily, we're not trying to kick you out. We just thought it might be more comfortable for you. Young people, loud music all night. This house is big enough. I'll stay in my room. I won't bother anyone. But the girls will feel self-conscious. Then maybe they should celebrate somewhere else." Mom sighed. "I thought you'd be more understanding. For Charlotte's sake. I am being understanding. I won't interfere. But I'm not leaving my home just to make it easier for her." Charlotte pouted and left the kitchen. Mom stayed behind. "Emily, I didn't expect you to come back with such an attitude." "Mom, I came back to my home. With every right to live in it. If that's a problem for you, the issue isn't me." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "You used to be softer. I used to have fewer reasons to be firm." In the end, the party was moved to a cafe. On Friday, the house emptied out. Everyone went off to celebrate Charlotte's birthday. I wasn't invited. For the first time in 2 weeks, I had the whole place to myself. I walked through the rooms I remembered so differently. I turned on the TV in the living room and sat in the armchair that used to be Dad's. Now it was shoved into a corner, replaced by a massive couch. "So how was the party?" I asked Charlotte when they got back. "Fine," she replied curtly. After that day, our communication dropped to the bare minimum. I felt like a tenant in my own house. Polite hellos, the occasional small talk out of courtesy, but no warmth. Sometimes it felt like they were deliberately talking about plans I wasn't part of, about family traditions that had formed without me. Work, on the other hand, was going great. They were already considering me for a promotion. The local management appreciated my experience. On Thursday, my supervisor hinted that in a couple of months, the deputy branch manager position might open up. At home, I walked in to find Mom and Henry sitting with papers and a calculator. "What are you calculating?" I asked. "Utilities," Henry said. "Since you're living here full-time now, it only makes sense that you contribute. We've invested in this house for 5 years, doors, windows, roof. It's only fair that we're compensated, even if gradually. You lived here for 5 years rent-free. That was your payment for the renovations. $800 a month is reasonable," he insisted. "All right, but tomorrow, I'm hiring an appraiser. Let's see what the actual rental value is for a house like this. I'd say it's at least $2,500 a month." Mom turned pale. "We don't have that kind of money." "Then let's live like a family, no bills, no accusations." The morning after my ultimatum, breakfast was silent. Everyone focused on their plates, avoiding eye contact. I could tell they talked about it for hours the night before and decided to go to war. Mom broke first. She set her spoon down and looked at me. "Emily, your father and I raised you here. We made this house what it is. And now you're the owner because of a piece of paper." "Mom, ownership doesn't come from replacing photos on the walls. It comes from legal rights and trust. You have neither." Henry snapped his head up from the newspaper. "Who do you even think you are, giving us ultimatums? We've lived here 5 years. Everything you see around you is thanks to us." "Thank you," I said calmly. "And once again, that was your payment for 5 years of free living. But you're not the owners. You're guests." Charlotte jumped to her feet. "You're just bitter because you don't have your own family. That's why you're taking it out on us." I slowly set my cup down and looked at her. "Charlotte, if I wanted to humiliate you, I'd start by asking what happened to the money from the apartment Mom sold. That was my dad's money. I saw your Instagram. Hawaii trips. Fancy parties. I guess the money started running low and I showed up at the wrong time." Mom turned pale. "You have no idea what I've been through. I chose Henry because I wanted a man who would be there for me. If you don't want to resolve this like family, we'll see you in court." "In court?" I almost smiled. That's when Brandon spoke up. He'd been silent the whole time, but now he spoke clearly. "She's right. The house is hers. The paperwork is solid. Why are you all ganging up on her? Why dump your problems and mistakes on her?" Everyone turned to look at him. Mom stared at her stepson like he'd betrayed her. "Brandon," Henry said coldly, "you don't understand the situation." "I do. You've gotten used to living here for free, and now you don't want to admit the house doesn't belong to you." Henry snapped. "You're just like your mother. Naive and foolish. If you care so much about fairness, go live with her. Brandon turned red but said nothing. Mom stood up from the table. Fine. If you're so insistent on your rights, I'll call the lawyer. Let's see what he says. She pulled out her phone and dialed. She put it on speaker, clearly wanting me to hear everything. Mr. Anderson? This is Susan Harris. I have an urgent question. My daughter returned to the house her father left her and is now demanding we either move out or pay rent. Is there anything we can do? The lawyer's voice was tired. Susan, if the house was left to her by a will and the documents are in order, then she has every legal right to do as she pleases. You're living there because she allows it. But we invested in renovations, we furnished it. That doesn't grant you ownership. You could try to claim compensation for improvements, but only if you can prove they increased the home's value, and only through court. And even then, it's not guaranteed. And if she's evicting you, she can do that legally, with 30 days notice to terminate your free use of the property. Mom hung up. The kitchen went dead quiet. Henry was the first to speak. All right, you want to play hardball? Let's play. But you'll pay for everything. You want the house? Take it. But in the exact condition we got it. What do you mean? We'll take the new windows, the kitchen. It's ours. We'll swap out the front door to put the old one back if we can find it. Henry, I said calmly, you can take whatever you can prove you bought with your own money. The rest stays. The next morning, I woke up to slamming doors and raised voices. I looked out the window and saw Henry loading suitcases and boxes into the car. Mom stood nearby, looking lost, while Charlotte argued with her heatedly. I made coffee and sat by the window. I'd forgotten what peace and quiet felt like in this house. Not tense. Not heavy. Just still. Henry walked into the kitchen with a man I didn't recognize. This is Mike. He's here to help take out the kitchen. Henry, you can remove the kitchen if you show receipts proving you bought it. Receipts? Who keeps receipts for 7 years? People who buy expensive furniture, especially if they plan on taking it with them later. He glared at me. So you're planning to keep everything? I plan to keep everything that belongs to the house. Henry walked over to the cabinet where Dad's old clock stood, a wooden one with a pendulum he'd bought before I was even born. We're taking the clock. It was already here when we moved in. Don't you dare, I said sharply. Why not? It's not like it's yours personally. My dad bought that clock. I remember him picking it out. Prove it. I stepped between him and the cabinet. Henry, you can take your clothes, your books, your personal things. But the clock stays. He tried to reach past me, but I didn't move. We stood there, face to face, and I saw in his eyes the anger of someone who realized he'd lost. Then he turned on his heel and walked out of the kitchen. Mom stayed behind. I didn't think it would end like this, she said quietly. Mom, what did you think? That I'd live in Chicago forever while you took over my house? I thought you'd understand that family matters more than paperwork. Family does matter, but I haven't felt like family in this house. I felt like an outsider. She was silent for a moment, then said, maybe I rushed into selling the apartment. Maybe moving here was a mistake. Maybe you won't forgive me. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means accepting what happened and moving forward. She nodded and left. Half an hour later, they were gone for good. The house was quiet. I walked through the rooms and felt a strange sense of relief. That evening, I called Thomas, the son of the architect who helped my dad build the house. We agreed to meet the next day. Thomas, I need your help with some repairs. And honestly, just getting the house back in shape. Of course, Emily. My dad always said this house was special. Robert poured his heart into it. The next day, Thomas arrived with his father. They walked through the house, checked the roof, the windows, the foundation. Overall, it's in good condition, the architect said. Henry actually took care of it. But there are definitely things that need updating. We made a renovation plan. The house didn't need a makeover, it needed to be brought back to life. I'll help, Thomas offered. I've got some free time between projects right now. Work began a week later. Thomas came by every morning, and together we slowly restored the house. He turned out to be not just a skilled builder, but also easy to talk to. We chatted about my dad, the house, how much the town had changed over the years. One evening, while we were painting the living room walls, I found a box of old family photos behind a dusty cabinet. Among them was a photo of me and my dad standing beside the unfinished house. I remember that day, Thomas said, looking at the photo. My dad told me, this house is going to be a happy one. Robert's building it with love. It was happy, I said, while my dad was alive. And now? Now it has a chance to be happy again. On my birthday, my mom didn't call. My aunt from the next town over did. Emily, how are things? Susan told me you two had a falling out. Everything's fine, Aunt Carol. I'm home. You're both stubborn, her and you. Maybe. But sometimes stubbornness is what it takes to stand your ground. That evening, Thomas showed up with a cake and a bottle of wine. We sat in the kitchen, where Dad's clock now ticked quietly and his photo hung on the wall. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. To bringing the house back to life, I replied. When he hung the landscape painting we'd bought at a local exhibit, our hands brushed. He didn't pull his away and neither did I. And that's when I knew this was just the beginning.